we've been in the talks of having our own TV show and pitching a TV show to a streaming service of some sort.
Yeah, whether it be Netflix, Hulu, and also going to the world's tallest waterfall and flying a drone down the world's tallest waterfall.
Yeah.
These were actual ideas that we pitched them, and they actually seem to be relatively into these ideas. We stole $1,200 from the third best tennis player in the world, and hello, everybody. Welcome back to the TMS Pod. My name is Mitchell, and I'm here in person this time with my co-host, Steven.
Hello.
And today, again, Steve and I are in person because I actually have come back to Kelowna to film a couple YouTube videos. So you guys are in luck if you watch our YouTube channel, which you should be. I don't know why you're here if you don't. But we have a ton of awesome videos planned for the next 2 or even 3 months.
Yeah.
And
Well, this last week has been an absolute grind because we've banged out a video every single day.
Yeah. I've been here for a week. So.
Yeah, we've been out filming and it's just been nuts. So this is the first time we've had a chance to sit down, relax a little bit.
Yeah, I thought we'd come here, record a podcast, just the two of us, and kind of just shoot the shit when it comes to video stuff. Yeah. So today we are talking all about, we got on the topic of this idea of missed opportunities, things that have come our way that we've either said no to or that we've looked back at in a retrospective way and just kind of thought, oh, if we had done this differently, it would have turned out, I would have expected it to turn out in this certain way, and it could have been a good thing or it could have been a bad thing. So
yeah, well, because having posted to YouTube for many years now, we get a lot of stuff and people ask us about doing a lot of stuff for them. And so I've just kind of come up with a list, and then I think this would be a good trip down memory lane where we just kind of think about oh shit, that would have been hilarious, or we can just laugh about what this was, and
that would have been horrendous if we actually went through with that.
Exactly. So anyways,
I think Steven here has a lot of the ideas and a lot of the notes. So
because for the last week I've been thinking about this, and this has been my kind of brainchild, if you will. So I'm going to lead into the first thing, which is, this is a big one, and this is going to be something that I thought was kind of interesting, is Carnivore Aurelius. So if you have been on the internet, you may know who this is or what this is, but for the people who don't, these people approached us about being video editors, and they were people who promote a lifestyle of only eating meat and meat products. And they sell beef liver crisps, which are essentially liver beef jerky in a way.
So they are strictly a carnivore diet, meat, everything. They also have a lot of radical kind of, not necessarily when it comes to eating habits, but other habits that you do. Their other thing was sunning your balls. So getting sunlight and UV light on your
apparently it's good for you, and also how they were saying that tap water is really bad for you, and all these things are very out there in terms of just health things, health dietary,
very radical
ideologies. Anyways, they approached us, and this was an opportunity. I don't endorse this really. I'm not a big only eat meat kind of guy, but they approached us and were hey, we want some videos done, and I was sure, let's make some videos.
They originally approached us because of our POV rig. They saw Headed West. I think that was the main video that they actually saw. And they said, hey, we love your POV stuff. We like how it's super high quality. We want you guys to do the same thing for us.
Yeah.
So they, without even consulting us, went out and purchased a motorcycle helmet, a Blackmagic 4K, literally every single, a video transmitter, every single piece of gear that you would need to build out this rig. And then they were hey guys, we've got the stuff. Can you just tell us how to put it together?
Yeah.
And we're what? These people just dropped probably $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 on everything to buy it, and they didn't even try it yet.
They also had zero filmmaking experience. We were teaching them what ISO was, what aperture was, how to even shoot, which is hilarious. Anyways, and so I was looking back on it, and then I pulled up the original email, and they were saying, hey, we make beef liver crisps. That's our business. We promote a carnivore only diet of getting back to the roots, very much like the Liver King, super similar to the Liver King. And it's kind of interesting because I looked at it, and they were saying, hey, we currently have, they're we're trying to grow a social media presence, and our goal is to build this into a $100 million per year $50 million per year business.
Right.
Very sizable business. And we're okay, interesting. Anyways, I looked at it. I remember when we first found them, they had 13,000 followers on Twitter. Anyways, it's funny because we kind of worked with these guys on and off for a year-ish, and things were kind of all right. We were just kind of doing editing and stuff like that. And then it turned into, basically we just lost contact. They just stopped kind of asking us to make videos, and that was it. It was very freelance. Anyways, looking back on it now, I'm like, fuck, that would have been so good, because now they are sitting at 300,000 followers. I looked at their website on SimilarWeb. They get 150,000 visitors a month on their website.
Holy crap.
Which is ridiculously good. And they were willing to give us equity in the company. So after we did a few videos for them, they're like, hey, yeah, this is working well.
But I remember that.
But we want people to kind of like really be involved in the video making process. And they were saying, hey, if it works out and like if you're keen for it, you can like we can kind of think about like a part ownership type thing about having equity in this business. And we were kind of humming and hawing, and we were kind of like, this is where kind of ego gets in the way, because we're like, oh yeah, like we're too good for this in a way.
Yeah.
And we just kind of really didn't kind of go into it thinking about like what this could be. Looking back on it now, I'm like, shit, we should have done that 100%, because looking back on it now, they're probably pulling crazy amounts of money from this, and that business is probably doing so good, because especially
I don't think it's at the $50 million mark yet.
I bet
I bet you it's in the tens of millions probably.
Yes, exactly. And having part ownership, that would be pretty damn good.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And anyways, it's funny because way back when we started with them, they got the head rig, but the thing is that they didn't know how to build the helmet. Do you remember that part?
Yeah.
So they had the helmet, like they bought all the camera gear, didn't really know how to use it. Then they're also like, hey, how do you build the helmet? Hey, can you build us the helmet and send it to us?
Yeah.
And this is back in the time when we filmed the Headed West video, and we were kind of like, hey, we haven't really used this in a while. Let's ship this to you as like a long-term rental. And then you guys can use the helmet for your filming, and then we'll do the editing, and like basically you can do it like that. Anyways, we shipped them the helmet. They use it on and off, and kind of like it worked out well. And then I remember that we were like, oh, we need the helmet rig back. And these guys were based out of New York City and LA. And I remember like some of the shots they were getting were in these crazy LA like penthouse apartments, and like in this New York City penthouse apartment. We're kind of thinking, who the hell are these guys? Because this entire time, they kept the entire thing anonymous. And even to this day, no one really knows who's behind this account.
Yeah, we do. I mean, we're not going to say, because I think we signed a couple NDAs.
Yeah, so we're not going to name names, but we can go into detail roughly about who they are in terms of background of who they are. And it was kind of nuts, because I had no idea who these people were, but it seemed like they had money to burn, right? And it's kind of interesting because we needed the helmet rig, and it was in New York City at the time. And this is around the time that we were shooting that commercial for Nike, and it was using the POV rig, and we're like, hey, we're going to be in New York, and the helmet rig is already in New York. We'll meet you guys somewhere in New York and pick it up from you. Anyways, we go there. We go and meet this guy in person.
Yeah.
And we go to this apartment on the Upper East Side of New York City, and it's like this 2-story, 4,000 square foot townhouse in New York that is like so nice, ridiculously nice. And we're kind of thinking like, where did they get all this money? He's like, hey, how's it going when we meet him? And we're kind of thinking like, who the hell is this guy? And it turns out that he's some super big investment analysis guy in New York City, but this guy's like super young. Like he's like full on finance bro. And it's kind of interesting because New York City has a law where you need to we were doing the math, and we looked up his apartment, and I think it was $16,000 a month in rent.
Yeah.
And New York City has a law where you need to be making 40 times
I don't think it's a law, but it's like kind of like a very common rule between landlords and tenants, where you need to show proof of income of 40 times the monthly rental price. So at $16,000 per month to rent, times that by 40, this guy has to prove that he's making an annual income of $640,000 just to have the ability to rent that place.
Yeah. And I remember as we were going on the subway to go meet up this guy to get the helmet from him, we were on the subway, and then we looked up his address because he sent us the address, and then Mitchell's like, holy shit, this thing's like $16,000 a month to rent. Anyways, we did the math on that. We're like, holy shit, who is this guy?
Yeah.
Anyways, it's only after we did a little bit more research and figured out who this guy kind of was and how he's like big in the finance world. But he also runs this multi-million-dollar beef liver crisp company.
Yeah, the most random thing.
And then now the thing is that this beef liver thing, they don't have the name on the account. Like no one knows who runs this. And I think it's because they want to keep it anonymous because they don't want like, I can almost guarantee that these two guys that are running this business, they don't follow the lifestyle that they promote on this Twitter account and on all these social media platforms about eating only meat and things like that. I bet you it's purely just a business play, being like, hey, we saw this opportunity. This is probably super lucrative. Let's get into it, and then we'll just completely keep it anonymous.
Yeah, we don't know for sure if they do or do not follow that regime, but
I highly doubt they do, because they seem like very much like New York City type, like super, like, what do you call it, like greens and vegan. They give me that vibe. They kind of give me that vibe, and then they're doing this complete 180 as a business. Anyways, I remember kind of talking about that and thinking like, shit.
Now
should have done this.
Yes, I mean, definitely sounds like a good opportunity. My little kind of I have a reason why it wouldn't work, because they were like, oh yeah, we potentially might want to give you guys some skin in the game, is what they called it, which essentially just means equity in the business. But that was when they were like, they were saying, we want to do a 100-part POV series for our I think it was Instagram and Twitter at the time. And they're like, yeah, we want you guys to help us do it. And we're like, okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
But I think what happened, like they kind of, when it came down to actually filming with the helmet rig, with the whole thing, they realized how much of a task that is and how much work it is to put the helmet on, get the right shot, film it properly. And I honestly bet you it wouldn't have worked out, just because they would have realized that, oh, this helmet rig is just way more work than it's worth. We can get 80% of the way, 90% of the way with our phones, because a lot of their content before that was POV content, but it was filmed with their phones. So they were basically just either put their phone in a rig that was like kind of strapped to their chest and then just do POV stuff, or they just hold it with one hand and do it one-handed.
Yeah.
And I feel like what would happen is we kind of like, yeah, let's do it. Like, let's get this equity or whatever. We did it. If they even actually like pulled through with that, then what we do, like, they realize how hard it is to film this or to use the head rig, and then they would have kind of been like, okay, I think we're gonna have to go our separate directions because it wouldn't be worth it.
Yeah, I mean, right? But at that point, we probably would have worked with them to pivot, right?
Yeah,
because if we have skin in the game, we could have been like the ones to help pivot. Because I remember that the basically from that, like, they started do this with this 100-part series, and it quickly devolved from like, okay, 100 parts, okay, now we're gonna do 20. Let's start with 20 and go from there. And then from there, it turned into, okay, let's do short form content.
Yeah.
Like, let's just focus on TikTok because that's where the views are. And I remember even throughout that, we kept editing a few videos along the way, and we made some viral TikToks. Like, we made a few TikToks that got well over like 2 or 3 million views.
Yeah.
And that was like direction from us. We're like, hey, yeah, do this, this, and this. It was kind of like, but that's also because it was super radical. Like, I remember we made one TikTok that was about like how tap water is the worst thing ever to drink.
Yeah.
Because there's all these chemicals, all this, all that kind of stuff. Hey, here's me drinking tap water right now, so I don't hate tap water. But I just find it kind of interesting because it's just super radical stuff that, of course, is going to do well on TikTok. Because everyone's like, what the fuck is going on here? What are you saying? And I remember one of the ones we did as well was they had an EMF reader, which is electromagnetic field detector, which basically detects like these radio waves coming from devices. And they were saying that AirPods were poisonous and causing cancer.
Yeah.
And so they would take this EMF thing, turn the AirPods on, and then hold it up, and it'd just go crazy, like beep, like super intense. And I'm just kind of thinking,
but then the next part of the TikTok was them holding it up next to a Wi-Fi router, and it wouldn't go off.
Yeah.
Or it wouldn't go off nearly as bad as like the AirPods. But I'm like, okay, hey, it's different technology.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, there's a reason that it's not going off with Wi-Fi and it is going off with AirPods,
exactly.
right?
Well, and their whole narrative was like, oh yeah, AirPods are like bad. It's like causing cancer, like to the cells kind of thing. And I'm thinking about, you are fucking dumb. Like, if you have taken any high school physics class, you would understand that it's non-ionizing radiation, and it's also different wavelengths that you're measuring.
Yeah.
So that's just the Bluetooth signal going from your phone to the AirPods. And these guys were saying, oh yeah, this is causing cancer. This is causing all these health issues.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking like, this is ridiculous. Like, this is stupid. No wonder that TikTok got so many views.
Yeah.
All you're doing is scanning for the radio signal, and that's it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that whole thing was just like kind of interesting. I would have done it as the equity play in terms of just for the money. I wouldn't really be like following this, like whatever it is, like lifestyle or like dietary kind of thing. But I just remember thinking back and being like, man, I could have made a shit ton of money with that. Like that would have been
not guaranteed.
This is all hypothetical, but I've been like, man, that would have been kind of nice, and it would have been super easy too.
Yeah.
So, anyways, there's that.
Yeah,
And
that was
that's
good.
one of the bigger ones that I was like, well, whatever.
Darn.
You win some, you learn some, and this is basically just also to say that like everybody misses opportunities. You can look back. Hindsight's always 20/20. You can always be like, man, I should have done this and I should have done that. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. There's not much else you can do. So,
okay, let's move on to the next one.
on to the next one. The next one, this is going to be a serious throwback.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember this. They don't really have like a name, but there's these two guys that wanted to hire us. One of them was an ex-football player. Do you remember this? We each took the meeting. Tommy didn't take the meeting because he was like, yeah, this isn't for me. And then we were kind of too keen and kind of blindsided. Anyways, they wanted to do a thing where I forgot what they did. They kind of they wanted to do a video series where we travel around.
Well, no, because it was two guys. One of them was this ex NFL football player. The other one was like this finance guy that is a wizard when it comes to finances and whatever.
Entrepreneur, which is another term for unemployed.
Well, yeah, but then they reached out to us and said, hey, we're looking for some videographers, and they were looking for one person, but then they were willing to have a call with each of us individually to then choose one of us to be their person that goes with them. And they're like, of course, they're selling you the world. They're like, we're going to go travel here, and we're going to go do this, and we're going to go do that. And like, I'm thinking, like in the moment, you're like, travel and make videos, like get paid. Like, that sounds awesome. But then we really started thinking about it, and they really started talking about it, where it sounded like, okay, our job would be to film all day, edit all night, so that they would have videos to post for the next day, and like do like a daily V. If you ever watch Gary V's videos, like a daily vlog every single day of this person. And I remember talking to both of them, and like basically they were like, yeah, like we can, like if you come with us, like I don't know if they were necessarily going to pay us, but they were going to pay for our travel and everything like that. And they're like, yeah, if you come with us, we can even teach you. And we want somebody who's hungry and ready to learn. And
teach me what?
Well, but like they're like, oh, so-and-so who's the football player can teach you about fitness and whatever.
Oh, they're also a big mindset guru.
Yes,
kind of
and then he
holistic medicine.
Well, and then the other guy was like, the finance guy was like, oh, and I can teach you about making money and things like that. He's like, oh, I make I think it was $20,000 per month or something like that. And he was trying to like flex on us, or I think he talks about how he made like $600,000 per year or something. But he's trying to flex how much money he made to be like, yeah, we can teach you how to make money. And they're trying to sell it to us by saying, we can give you value, we can do this, come with us and basically be our videographer and travel around with us. And I'm like, in some instances that might end up like, first off, I think if it actually came true, it might have actually been kind of interesting if it actually went the way that they were saying it would. But I do remember that we both took the meeting, and then we kind of like texted them back and forth, and then they just stopped responding. They just never reached out to us.
Whether they found someone else or whatever it was. But I think it's just like, I mean, I'm glad that didn't work out.
Yeah. Oh,
These things are a classic example of like everyone promises you the world, and yet nothing happens because people don't realize how much work it is to pull off a majority of what they want to do. Like they're so idealistic about what their visions are.
Yeah.
And this is a constant theme in videography, especially. Everyone's like, oh, if you work with us on this first time, we'll have more videos in the future. It's like, okay, well then sign me up for multiple videos. Like,
pay me now for
pay me now,
videos.
or like, let's get a retainer in place where you have to pay me a certain amount of money regardless. And then you're incentivized to give me as many videos as possible.
Yeah.
And so, like,
I mean, if I had a dime for every time somebody said, "Hey, like, cut me a break on this first video, and then I'll have more videos for you in the future," and they promise you the world, I would be a millionaire. Like, it has happened so many times where they're like, yeah, this first video, cut me a break on this one, but like the next one, like basically we have a whole bunch planned, like we're gonna get you on,
exactly.
And it's like that. But I mean, I don't think maybe once. Has that actually come true where we're like, sure, we not necessarily give them a deal, but like we kind of work with them, and then they promise us another one, and then they actually come around to the next one.
It's rare because typically the people that who are hiring a videographer who have like the actual intentions of hiring them for multiple videos, they already are like, hey, let's do all these videos now. Not like, hey, let's start with one and then we'll see how that goes and then do another one. Because it's just like, the fact that they're wanting to say get a deal in the first one just shows that they're basically pinching pennies enough that they're trying to look for a deal. So basically they can't guarantee a bunch of these videos because they don't have the money to make all the rest of the videos. So watch out for that one because it's very common. And we've kind of been very hesitant. There's only been a couple of times that we've actually kind of cut a deal on making the videos. But typically we're just like, no, like if you want a deal, this is going to like the deal is going to come in the 3rd, 4th, 5th video down the line. That's once we kind of guarantee that you guys are actually serious about doing this kinds of stuff. And so big idealistic ideas. And
that's funny actually.
Yeah, so
I haven't thought about that. Like that probably happened 5 years ago. I haven't thought about that until today.
Well, some of these are like ones where I've just been like on a run or something, and then they just pop in, and I run them in the notes app because I'm like, I'm never gonna remember these again. But I just remember like they just pop in the head. I'm like, oh right, that happened so long ago.
Yeah.
Anyways, so the next 2 that I want to go over are 2 that are basically we dropped the ball on this one. These are 2 of us dropping the ball.
Actually, wait, before we get into that one, I got one more, which is a bit more of like, we'll promise you the world and whatever, which I think is kind of interesting. Do you remember, you probably don't, because I think I was the only one to take the meeting with this guy, but there was guys based in, I can't remember what country they were in. They were in some European country. I think it was like Norway or Sweden or one of those countries. And they owned a yacht realtor company, or like a yacht selling company, a yacht broker company.
Yes.
And they reached out to us because this was about 2019 probably. And it was a situation where they reached out to us and were like, hey, we love your videos. We want you guys to come onto our yacht and film like travel style, kind of like influencer-esque kind of videos that we can use to sell these yachts. And like basically they were like, hey, come on the yacht and have fun. And I was like, this is awesome. We could bring a whole bunch of friends and go yachting in the Mediterranean. And we can go jump off the top, and we can ride the jet skis and make it look awesome. And anyways, I remember being super down for it. And then for actually, the reason was because that was early 2020, and then COVID hit, and then nothing happened.
But the thing is, I remember these guys were actually fairly serious.
Oh yeah, they were fairly serious. So
like, shit.
Hey, maybe we might reach out to them again, and
some of these we should reach out. Like some of the ones that were like we kind of messed up. We should maybe reach out to them and just see what happens.
Yeah,
that'd be kind of funny.
Anyways,
actually, that's a good
so you
point.
might see us on a yacht sometime soon, but I highly doubt it.
Well, I mean, that's funny too, because remember, this is another one. Remember that Mexico thing? That was Wakesurfing Mexico?
Yeah.
Some guy, again, reached out from our videos. He's like, hey, I run a Wakesurfing facility in Mexico.
Yeah.
I want to hire you guys to come down here and film some videos. And we said, okay, cool. This is also super early in our filmmaking career. So we're like,
this would have been like, honestly, one of, if not the first time we got paid to travel.
Yes.
So paid to go to Mexico and make a video of his resort.
And we weren't even, like, this is early enough that we weren't even thinking like, oh, we want money. It was just an aspect of, hey, if you pay for all of our expenses, like, so it's basically zero cost to us, we'll come down and make you some videos. Like, sure.
Yeah.
Let's go for it. And I remember we had a few calls with this guy, and it was going back and forth. Things were going well. And then one day he just stopped responding.
Yes.
And then we kind of just said like, hey, what's up? Like, what's going on?
And it was supposed to, I think this was like, because we were supposed to come down, because he's like, oh, I want you guys to come down for the windy season for this Wakesurfing thing, which is about, I think, January, February in Mexico. So then we were like, oh, we were in school at the time, but we had a week off. I think we had reading break. It was like in February. So then we're like, oh, hey, we could come down for these dates. I think it was like middle of February to the end of February.
Yeah.
And then I remember a month before, which is like, hey, we kind of need to start booking things if we're going to be doing this. Otherwise, flights are going to start getting more expensive, but we should start doing this. And I probably 3 weeks before,
like once he came down to like booking the flights, I remember he stopped responding, and then we kind of said like, hey, what's up? And then he said that something like his wife got cancer.
Yeah.
And it was like this weirdest thing where it just seemed like the most like outlandish thing that is just so like
the weirdest excuse.
Like you make it up kind of thing. It sounded like he was making it up. And he's like, oh yeah, my so-and-so has fallen ill and they have cancer now. And we're kind of like, what the hell? Like this just came out of absolute nowhere. And that quickly kind of like turned into nothing, but I thought it was just kind of funny. So anyways, moving on to things that like this is situations where we drop the ball.
Time for us to reflect.
And so I have 2 here. One is the cards company. So
cards company.
Like the Jack and Jill Card Co.
Yes.
So this is a business that we started that we were kind of like, we saw this going around on TikTok and like around here. It's basically, it's playing cards that have like deep questions on them. So the thought is that when you say play cards, you can ask people these questions and it starts a conversation. And it's like a great game. And the concept, solid. Execution, I thought, pretty damn good. We made some cards.
Okay, yeah.
We also committed to doing this and we're like getting into it. We actually told nobody about this. So this is the first time it's ended up anywhere publicly.
TMS Pod exclusive.
TMS Pod exclusive, exactly. And so I remember we did this card company. We called it Jack and Jill Card Co. The front of the box also looked mint. Like everything was like dialed in.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Actually, I think pretty good branding.
We've got the mock-ups right here of the boxes.
Yeah, so Mitchell might show you some of that. And anyways, it was kind of funny because we made these cards and we're like, hey, we got to go big or go home. So we ordered 1,000 decks of cards, which cost us around like $3,000.
Yeah.
And I remember, so our main marketing channel was we were going to use TikTok to market these things.
Yeah, so this is the box. It's probably hard to see here. We paid some guy on Fiverr to make the design. I thought it was pretty solid.
It looked pretty good. We had an Instagram, all the kinds of stuff. And it was kind of interesting because we were actually successful with this in the sense of we started getting sales and things started doing well. And this is all Amazon FBA, if you know what that is. So we would basically have these cards sent to Amazon, packaged up, and then sent through Amazon so they would handle the shipping and everything. And I remember we started getting some sales, and especially around Christmas, we were getting quite a few sales, and we had quite a few TikToks do well.
Yeah.
And then we just, for some reason, I don't know why, we lost interest in the whole idea. We kind of just were like fed up with the whole thing, and then we just gave up.
Yeah.
And looking back on it now, I'm like, why the hell were we so stupid?
Yeah.
Like, this could have been very solid. Sure, like the moment we reached some sort of like barrier or some sort of adversity, we like threw in the towel and that's it. And that just goes to show like, how shitty of entrepreneurs we are. Because I'm just like, the moment you reach any sort of like problem, you just kind of give up and we just kind of like lose interest in the whole thing. And we're just like, this is not going to work, blah, blah, blah. But it was just because we just didn't keep going.
Yeah,
right?
It would have worked pretty well.
Yeah, like we got to the point where, because I remember we got to the point where we lost money on this whole thing, and it was but I remember we sold out of the 1,000 decks, we sold 400 decks,
right?
Which wasn't quite enough to break even. But I remember we ended up losing, I think the cards were like $5,000. I misspoke. We lost $3,000 on the whole thing,
right?
Which was about a $15 hit for each of us.
Yeah, $15 hit.
Sorry, $1,500 hit.
Right. Yes.
For each of us, in terms of like money that we were out each, if we were to say split it up, and then but those 400 decks kind of offset some of that cost, obviously. But if we kept going with it, we would have been successful. And all we were doing is posting to TikTok, so it's free marketing, no ad spend, no nothing. And I'm just kind of like, frick, why did we do that? Like looking back on it now, if we just stuck with it.
Yep.
It could have been a pretty sizable business, especially through Amazon. It would have been so easy because everyone just buys it super easy. And especially around Christmas, I remember we were getting them. They were flying off the shelves because they were a perfect stocking stuffer.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
And this is also right around the time where you might have heard of a game called We're Not All Really Strangers. I think it's WNARS or something. Like they have an abbreviation, but I think it's called We're Not Really Strangers or something like its name kind of like that. But it's a similar card game, except theirs aren't playing cards. Theirs are just like deep question cards.
Yeah.
And there's like 3 levels and they go deeper and deeper into the levels.
Yeah. So we were basically taking that idea and putting it onto playing cards and then selling those, which is like arguably a little bit more sellable because they're dual purpose. You could like play some cards. It's super easy to get people to start talking, and it's a great idea. Like all around, solid execution. We did well. It's just that we found some adversity. Like I think the problem was that our TikToks just weren't getting views, and that's basically what discouraged us to kind of quit.
Yeah.
And we're like, anyways, yeah. So that whole thing kind of sucks. But then that leads me into my second kind of thing, which is us dropping the ball. This would be on the air fresheners. This is like, there's multiple issues with this whole thing, but the story goes that
another just failed business idea.
Another failed business idea, but it is what it is.
But this is one that I don't necessarily, I feel like once we scaled it up, it wouldn't have necessarily been that successful.
Yes. It was more in the sense of like, it was kind of a novelty, neat novelty idea. But we had this friend who came up with this thing about, air fresheners, an idea about that was basically air fresheners that have a scent in them and they're completely biodegradable. And when you're done, you plant them in the ground and there's seeds inside and they'll grow a flower. So it's basically like a mashed up paper type concoction with seeds infused inside. And so what happened is we were like, oh, this could sell pretty good.
Yeah.
anyways, we did this. We made some of them, and then we put them up on Shopify, built the whole store, everything like that, and we made a few TikToks about it, and they went viral, like super
million
viral.
view viral.
Like multiple millions of views on these things. And we got like 5,000 followers on the TikTok account, and we just started getting, I think we got 400 or 500 orders.
I think in total we got 450 orders.
Yeah, in like a 3 or 4 day period.
Yeah,
like
and we got slammed.
We're like, holy shit, this is crazy. This is working. And anyways, so we were up all night making these air fresheners. We were sending them out by hand, and we'd send them through letter mail, like Canada Post letter mail.
Yeah.
And we were doing everything. And but the thing is that it was just so daunting just to package everything and kind of get into it.
It was a lot of work.
Exactly. And anyways, and we were kind of like, oh, this is perfect. Like, let's try to turn this into something and like grow this. But then the TikTok stopped getting views. And then we just didn't really know much about marketing and kind of stuff like that.
I think we lost interest in that because it was so much work to make these. Like, making them was the hard part. It was so tricky where it was like we had to go outside into the shed, which is where we had our manufacturing plant, and like actually make these things. And like it involved like blending paper was kind of the main steps. You blend the paper, and then you have to dehydrate it in a dehydrator, and you got to rotate the trays in the dehydrator. It's a lot of work. And then also the product was so cheap that it was like that in order to make a lot of money, you got to sell a lot of them. So we would sell them in like packs. So like, I think a 3-pack was like 3-pack for $12. So they're like, you were selling them for $4 a piece.
They were quite expensive. Like
for air fresheners, they were very expensive. They're premium, but it was also like the reason I don't think this would have scaled once we got really big is just because of the logistics of like, okay, you're selling at minimum, you could only sell really 3 at a time, which would be like, or 2 at a time really, which would be you'd probably sell 2 for $10, 2 for $9. But they're so small, but then you got to also pay for being in Canada. You got to pay for shipping in order to get them anywhere reliably, because we were doing letter mail, but it wasn't super reliable.
Yeah, we'd lose a lot of packages. So like, and it also took forever because some of the shipping times was like 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah,
and like they might show up, they might not. There was no tracking.
We have no idea.
No tracking. Couldn't figure out if anything happened. So the other biggest thing, the biggest discouraging factor was just customer service in terms of getting emails of people like, hey, this isn't showing up, or hey, it's been this long and it hasn't shown up, and all this kinds of stuff. And we it just got so demoralizing that we're just kind of like, this just kind of sucks. Like, we're just hating this because we're just customer service reps at this point.
Yeah.
And then people would say, put their address in wrong. And our biggest problem also, big learning curve here, but when we first started, we did worldwide shipping because we're like, we need everybody and anybody. I remember we sent some to Iceland.
Really?
Yeah, which, looking at it now, foreign seeds on an island that's like very ecologically protected.
Yeah.
I think that's a big no-no. Yeah. But
another big problem we had with them was the scent on the actual air freshener was not lasting all that long.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure like Little Trees and like those other air fresheners, they have like a patented formula that lasts super long. And something that I like to do, that Steven also I know likes to do, is I only like to sell things to people that I know are good.
Yeah.
So I don't want to put, even if it's anonymous, like these people didn't know who we were, but like I feel guilty selling somebody a product that I know isn't going to be all that good, or it doesn't have the value. So like we were having problems with the scent only lasting, like once you pull out of the package, only lasting like a week. So then we're like, or even like a couple days, like 4 or 5 days. So we're like, oh shoot, like we're selling these things. They basically are done after 4 days.
It's $1 a day for the air freshener.
Essentially, it's $1 a day. And I'm like, I felt kind of guilty because I was like, we're selling them this shit product, and I don't want to do that. It's not who I am. I like to stand by good product, and that's what makes a good business. So yes, some R&D would have been required to, if we wanted to go forward with this, some R&D would have been required to make a scent that lasts longer and figure it out. But it's one of those things where, like, I just felt a little bit guilty, which also kind of discouraged, I think.
I mean, this isn't one that I'm like super disappointed we didn't continue pursuing. The cards one, I kind of am, because I would have been like, shit, that would have been so good. But this one is more like, there was a lot of writing on the wall. And I think another big thing too is that the air freshener market, not that big.
No.
In terms of like, not a lot of people are buying air fresheners for the actual item. They need something because their car smells. Like that's basically it. So the only way you'd win at this is trying to get your air freshener into like every store you can find, like mass distribution.
Yeah.
Artisan specialty air fresheners, not really a big business. And like the market for air fresheners is also not that big.
Yeah, and also we were selling a lot to females because it was a very
Cute, artsy.
Yeah, it was kind of cute, artsy craft, like Etsy style craft stuff. So it was a situation where we were like in a situation where we're selling to females, but females don't really give too many shits about their car and that kind of thing. So
so we would actually pitch it as like, put it, like even for kids, we'd like put it in your locker, like do this. We're trying to find any angle we can work to kind of sell them to people. And we're just kind of like, there really isn't like much of a use case for something like this. And they're expensive for what they are. So I mean, the biggest selling feature was that you could throw them in the ground and they'd grow a flower. That's basically it.
Yeah.
And so that was, that's that. Not super, super effective, but yeah, it is what it is. And so that's another great missed opportunity. This one here is also one that is quite interesting. This isn't in our hands that it failed, but it's just a very interesting one, which is the TV show.
Yes.
So we haven't talked about this before, but we've been in the talks. This happened in 2020, and we've been in the talks of having our own TV show and pitching a TV show to a streaming service of some sort.
Yeah, whether it be Netflix, Hulu, Prime, whatever. But we got reached out to, I remember it was August 2020, we got reached out to by this company, and it's this production company based out of
Los
Turkey.
Angeles.
No, actually, I think their main company was based out of Turkey, but they have another company, or part of their company is based out of Los Angeles, the TV mecca of the world.
It's called Kucher International, and they are the people who put on Homeland, is one of their most popular TV shows.
Yeah.
And there's a few other big titles, and they also do like a lot of international movies based in Turkey. Makes sense. But anyways, we got an email from the CEO of Kucher International, and he's like, hey, I saw your photo battles and I saw your basically your YouTube stuff. I really like it. Would you guys would like to have your own TV show? And we're kind of like,
heck yeah.
Yeah, why not? And so we get onto a call with this guy, and it's like, it is the CEO, this big wig executive at this production company.
Him, but then also two producers were there.
Yeah.
So there's 3 of them in total.
Anyways, and they said hey, yeah, we really like your stuff. We feel like you guys could really be marketable, and we could kind of really get you guys to have a TV show at one of these networks. And so we start then developing this whole idea and all this kind of stuff, signing contracts and things like that. And basically it was just like a waiting game at that point.
I remember because they reached out to us, and they were like, they had seen all of our videos, especially the photo battles. They were a big fan of those. And because they liked how we had, they just liked our dynamic nature of it, and kind of how it was kind of a group aspect, but it was also entertaining. And this whole thing was we were all relatively entertaining people, like Steven, Tommy, and I. And I remember being in the meeting. I think this is second meeting actually, but they asked us oh, have you guys ever had any theatrical training, theater training, or any on-screen training? And we're like, no, that's a thing. And they were impressed. They were oh, whoa, you haven't had any theatrical online entertainment training in order to be on camera? And
School of Hard Knocks.
Yeah, that's right. And we're no. And they're wow, you guys are really good for not having any. I'm yeah, we just get on camera and we just talk about what we're doing and make it look somewhat entertaining.
Yeah, exactly. So. Yeah. And so we did that. And then I remember we were getting to the talks with it, and things kind of shifted in terms of we had to make a spec or a sizzle reel, kind of pitching us, and we had to kind of come up with this so they could shop it around and stuff. And then I also remember though that Tommy one day was hey, I'm not really feeling this thing. I'm going to pull out of it. And we're oh yeah, no worries. Whatever. Do you do you. It was a little disappointing because we were thinking oh, they want the 3 of us to kind of band together as a group.
And this would have been and kind of it's in its final form, it was a travel show. So they they kind of wanted us to kind of explore hidden kind of hidden legends in different areas. So we had ideas of going to China. We had ideas of going to
the most isolated island on the planet.
The most isolated island on the planet. And we had ideas of going to different places in Colombia and Bolivia and those kind of places, and exploring this ancient temple that used to be there.
Blah, rappelling blah, blah, down blah. A ravine or something.
And also going to the world's tallest waterfall and flying a drone down the world's tallest waterfall. Yeah. These were actual ideas that we pitched them, and they actually seemed to be relatively into these ideas.
Yeah. So that would have been dope. It's very Yes Theory they do a lot of that stuff kind of now. This is, I don't know if Yes Theory was doing that kind of stuff back in 2020. I think they were doing stuff like that, but it was basically a way of taking Yes Theory and turning it into a television show and kind of bring it to a mass market versus just being on YouTube. And it was very interesting. And so we like they were basically in the works of shopping us around. So they would kind of like package all of our likeness and stuff into a media kit essentially and start taking it to these meetings and pitching it to these executives of these shows. And we knew from the beginning that this was going to be a slim chance, but I was just like, it would have been sick if it worked out.
Yeah.
Like, holy. And I know that when Tommy kind of like backed out of the whole thing, we were like, oh shit, is this whole thing dead in the water? Because I was thinking like, hey, if we can get this in the background, people just, I don't know, shopping us around, I wouldn't mind. It'd still be dope.
Yeah.
But anyways, then they said, oh, no. It's not an issue that Tommy left because like, although there is 3 of us and they were willing to take on 3 of us, they were saying that the most marketable aspect was Mitch and I because we are twins and there is that like twin factor. So they were just saying if Mitchell or you had dropped out, that would have been a much bigger issue because then it's just 2 random dudes. And so yeah, the whole idea was Property Brothers, but for travel was kind of like the whole thing. Anyways, it's funny though because we said this and like last week Mitchell's just for shits and giggles emailed the guy
because like it kind of like where we left it was like, oh, we're shopping this around and we're like, okay, cool, let us know when you hear something, and then nothing. And then like months would go by and I would send an update, send an email being like, hey, any updates, like have you guys gotten anything? And then nothing. And then I'd send another one, hey, just following up, wonder if there's, and then nothing. And then finally, like after a couple months, we got a response. And they're like, oh no, nothing yet, but we're still trying. Thanks for checking in. And then we didn't hear anything for a little while. And then again, couple months go by, like 6 months go by. Hey, anything else? And then I remember like probably a year or a year and a half after we made the original sizzle reel, they came back to us and said, yeah, actually, like, hey, can you guys, like, we actually might have something here. Can you guys make some tweaks to the sizzle reel and update it a bit? Because it's been a year
they said
and a half.
Roku might be interested.
Yeah, I think they said Roku would be, and we're like, okay, so we get make the edits, do all the stuff, send it back, and then nothing. And then just last week, we sent them, I sent them another follow up and said, hey, anything going on? And they said, what did they say? He was like, oh, like, nothing new on our end. However, like maybe we could potentially reimagine the idea of the show. Do you guys have any ideas of like what we could do that could make it slightly different or whatever? So from there, we kind of expressed some ideas and stuff like that. I'm not going to go into too much detail because if it does turn into reality, it'd be kind of neat. But yeah, it's technically not dead in the water yet.
Yeah, it's also because we just keep poking them.
Yeah, but I'm a little skeptical if this actually is going to turn into anything.
This isn't one of those things that I was like, I'm devastated if it doesn't work out. If it works out, great. Like whatever. Like it's gonna be awesome. But if it doesn't, like it just kind of it's a cool story.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of interesting. And then the final one I have.
Oh my God, you're loading up. I had one.
I am loading. I've thought about this. I've been thinking about this for a while. Final one, the head rig with Stefano Tsitsipas.
Yes.
Yeah. So Stefano Tsitsipas is like the 3rd best tennis player in the world.
Yes.
This is also in 2020, right after the U.S. Open finished. I remember the date, and we get a DM on Instagram from Stefano Tsitsipas saying, hey, love the Headed West video, love the head rig. Can you guys make one for me too? And we're like, sure, yeah. And so we then we're like, okay, well, what do you want to do with this? Like, how do you want to build this out? Like, and for him, he is a year older than us, but he is loaded.
Yeah.
He's got nothing but money.
You if you just looked it up on the internet, he had just won some tournament where he won $12 million.
No, I think at that point, his career earnings were $12 million.
Yeah, okay.
And he's like 24 now, like 25-ish, like not like he's
doing okay.
Very young. Anyways, and at the time he was 21 because this is 2020. So he was like a year older than what we were. And so he was like, oh yeah, like give me a list of the parts that we're going to be needing and then you can order them all and I'll send you the money and you can guys start building it and then you can ship the whole thing to me. And we're like, sure, yeah. But we had built the original head rig with a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera and 18 to 65 with the adapter or 18 to 35 with an adapter and all this kind of stuff. But he wanted to go Sony A1 or Canon R5, like those cameras
they had just
come out, and we're like, yeah, we can. We just don't know if it's gonna work because it actually turns out that when we built the head rig, the setup that we had, which is the Blackmagic with the Metabones 0.71 speed booster and the Tokina 11-16 ultra wide lens, that was like the perfect setup in terms of like everything
Unintentionally
the perfect setup for having the widest possible field of view, but still having the ability to do like manual focus with hard stops on the lens and all this kind of technical
as
stuff.
well as it not being fisheye and warped.
Exactly. So we were then kind of now trying to figure out like how to make this work on a full frame camera. So we're doing research, this kind of like all this kind of stuff. We were talking back and forth. We had a call with him, so it was him.
Yeah,
we
talked to him in person.
Talked to him in person, and we basically said like, okay, now we need the money because we got to start ordering all these pieces. And I remember the whole thing kind of stalled out because
originally because we said, hey, do you want us to buy everything here? Or do you want to buy everything, then ship it to us? And then he's like, oh, it'd probably be easiest. And we also agreed it would probably be easiest if we just bought everything here and then shipped it to him, the final product to him.
Yeah.
And because if he had bought the stuff and shipped it to us, he could pay for everything himself. But we were like, oh, now we just need money to buy the stuff. So I think we priced it out for the whole thing with our time included. It was gonna be like $7,500 US. In order to build this whole thing out. And that includes the camera, the lens, the helmet, the man, like the labor it takes to build it, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, sounds good. So then we're like, okay, cool. How do we send the money? And he's like, oh, I can do PayPal. And we're like, perfect. But then something happens where he sends $1,200 US to our PayPal. And then PayPal restricts him. And it's like, you can't send anymore. It's too much. You need to increase your limits. But the thing about PayPal is like sometimes the limits only increase when you actually do a lot of transactions. So it's
hard to send a lot of money.
It's hard to send a lot of money with these one-off transactions. So he sent the $1,200 and then we didn't really hear much from him for a little while. And then we're like, okay, are you? So a little bit later, we said, hey, are you going to send the rest of the money? Because we said, hey, we need all the money up front because we're going to be buying all this gear. And he's like, oh, yeah. I'll send the rest through wire transfer. So and then he's like, oh, I got to talk to my bank guy. We're like, okay, cool.
He's accountant, I think.
You got a bank guy. That's neat. Yeah. And anyways, he's like, oh yeah, what's your wire info? So we sent that all to him and then didn't hear much from him. And then like a couple days later, we say, hey, like any updates or whatever? And he's like, sorry, my bank guy has been away or whatever. Okay, cool. Another couple days go by. Finally, it comes down to it where we're like, hey, you sending the money? And then he's like, sorry, I can't figure it out. And then that was it.
That was basically it.
And then we're like, okay, what do we want? What do you want us? How do you want us to move forward? And then nothing, just crickets. And we haven't heard from him since.
Yeah.
So we stole $1,200 from the third best tennis player in the world. And yeah.
Subtle flex.
Subtle flex. That's one of those things that you say in two truths and a lie and people think it's a lie, but it's not. I have stolen money from the third best tennis player in the world.
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily take it from him. He sent it to me. Well, so we made off with $1,200 and never built the rig or bought anything. So
yeah. He never asked for the money back. So
easy peasy lemon.
Hopefully he doesn't come knocking because we've already spent
Stefano, if you're watching this, also nobody send this to him, but Stefano, if you're watching this, please don't ask for your money back. I'm sure you're making enough as is playing tennis that you don't need it. So
well, exactly. And then
that's some small boy stuff right there. If you ask for it back,
I thought it was kind of funny too because he was saying that, oh, I want to build this rig because we're kind of thinking like, what are you using it for? Why do you need this helmet rig? Two things. One, I don't think he realized how technical of a rig it is in terms of like how to operate it, and the fact you also need two people to operate it.
Yeah,
because this is a manual
someone
focus
wearing
rig
it and someone pulling focus.
Exactly. So it takes at least two people. And so he said, oh, me and Andreas Hem are going to be filming some videos in the next little bit.
Right. I remember him saying that.
And so we want the helmet rig to kind of get some POV shots because it would be a cool angle. So he also wanted to play tennis in it.
Yes.
And the thing about the helmet rig is that it's a big, heavy rig, and running doesn't look that good at all.
It's very shaky, and it goes all over the place.
Exactly. So he would want to do tennis, and we kind of said, like, hey, you do realize that, like, tennis is not the best activity to be using this helmet rig with, especially if you want to do professional tennis.
Yeah.
I just think he just didn't realize how much of a technical rig this was.
Yeah.
And like he had very idealistic expectations of what this was like.
Just for a bit of context, this head rig is so technical that we used to rent it out to people. We used to send the rig to people if they wanted it. We also then realized that this is so technical and like just the way it fits and the way you have to kind of use it and to get a good image that we now no longer send it to people. We only go with the rig as the operators. So we've been hired to use the head rig multiple times, and we will go with the rig as both focus puller and essentially camera operator to either wear the rig or heavily guide the person who is wearing the rig, because it is so It's so like tight fitting, and like you need to know exactly how the whole thing goes together. There's elastic bands that you got to use to just get the proper image, because we want to provide the best product possible. And if we just send it away and they get a shitty product with it, it doesn't make me feel very good, because they used our rig to get this kind of this shitty image. Even though if they just had the knowledge to use it, it would be better.
There's a lot of patience you need with this, something like this. And so something like that, it probably wouldn't have worked well in the environment that he wanted to bring it into. So that's another one that I thought was kind of interesting. We got a little bit of money out of the whole thing.
Not bad.
So not bad at the end of the day. Also, a head rig with an A1 would have been crazy.
Awesome.
Would have been awesome. And we use it now with the A7S III. So like we could have done it in terms of like how to mount it. It would have taken some adjusting.
Well, we use the Laowa 12 mil or 15 mil, but I don't think those lenses existed at the time.
No, actually they did. And I remember saying like, hey, we got these lenses. I remember explaining to him each lens and why it would be a good thing, but we had no experience with them prior to that. So we're buying these on a blind faith. And he's just kind of like, okay, which one do you think is gonna be best? And we're like, oh, well, we think this one might be best. Because it's kind of expensive. Is there cheaper options? Like, well, no, because it's a full frame 12 millimeter lens. Like it's expensive, and there's zero distortion. That's the whole goal of this whole thing.
Yeah.
So it would have been mint. Looking back now, it would have worked out if we just bought the things that we wanted to buy.
Yeah.
But we had no idea. It was a big risk because we had no experience.
And it wasn't our money either.
It wasn't our money. Exactly. So yeah, it was kind of interesting. So that's all I got in terms of missed opportunities. So,
well, that was pretty good. I don't necessarily have anything else here. So Steven came in clutch this episode with a whole bunch of topics to talk about.
Yep.
Hope you guys enjoyed a little trip down memory lane, even though this isn't memories for you. This is all new information. This is memories for me. We've had wild jobs over the last couple of years. Those are some of the weirdest and just kind of like ones that would
we got like, there's other ones that I think are just weird jobs that we've done that just, they're a funny story, but it's not like a missed opportunity. So you might want to touch on those in the future.
We'll save those for another episode.
Yeah.
But if you're new here, make sure you go and subscribe on the podcast channel so you guys don't miss any podcasts. Leave a like, because why not? It helps us out, and maybe more people can find this podcast. And if you are here and you don't know about our YouTube channel, where we make full-on videos and films about filmmaking and other things, go and do that. But I almost am certain that most people who are here know about the YouTube channel. So that's everything from us. I hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you guys in the next episode of the podcast. So see you later.
Peace.